The Silver Scout ship of the Galactic Federation drifted silently in Earth's orbit, its advanced cloaking systems keeping it hidden from human detection. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood at the observation deck, his gentle features hardening as he watched the broadcasts from the planet below. The screen showed various human activities, their wars, sports, hunting, and survival stories. Fascinating and terrifying, he muttered, making notes on his holographic pad. His crew of 15, all members of the peaceful Federation species, shared his unease. They had spent 3 months studying Earth, and each day brought new surprises. On the main screen, a documentary showed humans surviving in extreme conditions: desert, Arctic, and deep forests. Another display showed their martial arts competitions, while a third displayed their military exercises. The humans' adaptability and persistence amazed and frightened the observers. "Captain," called Su-min, his science officer, "you need to see this." She brought up historical footage of human conflicts. They fought wars that covered their entire planet. Twice. Her voice trembled slightly. And they rebuilt each time, stronger than before. Dae-ho nodded grimly. In the Federation's 10,000 years of existence, they had never encountered a species quite like humans. Most civilizations they discovered were peaceful, having evolved past their violent tendencies before achieving space travel. Humans were different. The crew gathered more data over the next few days. They watched humans hunt, fight, build, and survive. They saw them push through pain that would incapacitate most Federation species. Even their entertainment was filled with conflict and competition. "They're apex predators," Dae-ho wrote in his report, "but they're predators with technology, strategy, and an unfathomable drive to survive." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Their society simultaneously maintains peace and prepares for war. They compete even in peaceful activities. Their bodies are designed to handle extreme stress, and their minds are wired for both violence and cooperation." Back at Federation headquarters, Senior Council member Jae-yun Park read the report with growing concern. The holographic images showed humans performing feats that seemed impossible to the Federation standards. A human continuing to fight with broken bones. Another surviving weeks alone in frozen wilderness. Groups coordinating complex military operations. "They're not ready," she announced to the council. "Or perhaps we're not ready for them." The council chamber fell silent. These humans, they're capable of things we've evolved past. Their potential for violence, their predatory instincts, they're too unpredictable. The council debated briefly, but the evidence was clear. Humans were classified as a dangerous predator species, a designation not used in over 2,000 years. Jae-yun implemented immediate quarantine protocols, creating a restricted zone around Earth's solar system. The Federation deployed automated beacons around the quarantine zone, programmed to redirect any approaching ships. They would watch and wait, hoping humans might eventually evolve past their violent nature. Captain Dae-ho made one final log entry before leaving Earth's orbit. "The humans below remain unaware of our presence, continuing their daily lives. They fight, they hunt, they compete, they survive. They're killers, yes, but they're also builders, creators, and protectors. I wonder if we're making a mistake, fearing what we don't understand. But for now, the quarantine stands. May we never need what these humans can do." As the scout ship disappeared into hyperspace, humanity continued its march forward, unaware they had been judged and found too dangerous for galactic society. Little did the Federation know that their fear of humanity's violent nature would one day be their salvation. The beacons blinked silently in space, marking the boundary between Earth and the greater galaxy, waiting for a day when either humans would change or the Federation would need their unique capabilities. That day would come sooner than anyone expected. Commander Hae-jin Lee stared in horror at the emergency transmissions flooding his command center. The peaceful colony of New Haven, home to over 2 million Federation citizens, was under attack. But this was unlike anything the Federation had faced in its long history. "Sir, the defense shields are useless," His junior officer's voice cracked with panic. They're just passing through them like they're not even there. The main screen showed dark, shifting masses moving across the colony's surface. Where they passed, nothing remained. The parasites had emerged from deep space 3 days ago, their origin unknown. They appeared as black, writhing clouds that could solidify at will. The Federation's advanced technology, built for peace and prosperity, proved worthless against these creatures dubbed Void Eaters by the terrified colonists. He-Jin watched the feed from his flagship, the Starlight Guardian. His people, evolved beyond violence for millennia, had no concept of how to fight back. The colony's inhabitants could only run and hide, their peaceful nature betraying them in this moment of crisis. Another breach reported in Sector 7, reported his communications officer. The evacuation ships, they're not going to make it in time. He-Jin's hands gripped the command rail until his knuckles turned white. The Void Eaters moved with terrible purpose, consuming everything in their path. Buildings, vehicles, plants, and people. The Federation's energy weapons passed harmlessly through the creatures. Physical barriers delayed them only briefly. Even the most advanced containment fields failed to hold them. These parasites seemed to exist partially in another dimension, making conventional defenses useless. "Sir," his science officer called out, her voice trembling. "Analysis shows they're not just consuming matter. They're absorbing information, knowledge, memories, everything that makes us who we are." Within hours, New Haven fell silent. The colony, once a shining example of Federation prosperity, became a barren wasteland. But the Void Eaters weren't finished. They merged into a massive, swirling vortex and launched themselves toward the next colony world. Over the next 2 months, 2 more major colonies suffered the same fate. Billions of Federation citizens fled in terror. The peaceful species that made up the Federation had no concept of warfare, no understanding of combat tactics. Their civilization had evolved past the need for weapons of war, and now that choice was proving fatal. He-Jin's report to the Federation Council was grim. "Our peaceful nature, our advanced technology, our enlightened civilization, none of it matters against these creatures. We can't negotiate with them. We can't contain them. We can't stop them. 3 worlds are already lost, and more will follow." The council chambers erupted in panic. Thousands of years of peace had left them unprepared for a threat of this magnitude. Their ships could cross galaxies, but they couldn't fight. Their science could reshape planets, but it couldn't protect them. As He-Jin watched the recordings of the attacks, a thought kept nagging at him. Somewhere in the quarantine zone around Earth, a species existed that hadn't evolved past violence. A species that still remembered how to fight, how to kill, how to survive against predators. Perhaps, he thought, our greatest fear might become our only hope. But suggesting an alliance with the quarantined humans would be controversial at best, heretical at worst. Yet as reports of new Void Eater sightings came in, He-Jin knew they were running out of options. The Federation, in all its wisdom and advancement, faced extinction at the hands of creatures they couldn't comprehend or combat. Their peace had become their weakness, and their civilization stood on the brink of collapse. Little did they know, their salvation would come from the very species they had judged too dangerous to join their society. The emergency council chamber hummed with nervous energy as thousands of Federation representatives gathered. The room's crystalline walls reflected their worried faces, a stark contrast to the usual calm that pervaded these halls. Council member Sun Ma-cho stood at the central podium, her normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. "We have lost 3 colony worlds," she began, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. "The Void Eaters advance unchecked. Our peaceful ways, which have served us for millennia, now lead us to extinction." She paused, knowing her next words would spark controversy. "I propose we lift the quarantine on Earth and seek human assistance." The chamber erupted in chaos. Elder Ta Wan Kang, his aged face twisted in displeasure, rose from his seat. Madness. You suggest we invite killers into our civilization. These humans are quarantined for a reason. Their violent nature makes them too dangerous. Sun Mai activated a hologram showing the devastation of New Haven Colony. More dangerous than this, the images of destruction silenced the chamber. We labeled humans as predators, but that's exactly what we need now. We face predators who consume entire worlds. Perhaps we need predators of our own to fight them. Ambassador Min-Soo Park, known for his diplomatic skills, stepped forward. I've studied Earth extensively. Yes, humans are violent, but they're also protective. They fight hardest when defending others. Their history shows countless examples of them risking their lives to save strangers. The debate raged for hours. Federation species, evolved beyond violence, struggled with the concept of intentionally seeking out those they had deemed too dangerous to contact. But the Void Eaters left them no choice. Look at their entertainment. Sun Mai continued, displaying human movies and books. They constantly imagine scenarios of fighting against overwhelming odds. They prepare for threats we never considered possible. While we evolved past violence, they evolved to channel it. Elder Kang made his final argument. If we let them in, they'll never leave. We'll be introducing predators into our midst. What happens after the Void Eaters are gone? What happens when the humans turn on us? Sun Mai's response was simple. If we don't act now, there won't be an after to worry about. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but desperation won over fear. The Federation Council approved lifting Earth's quarantine. Ambassador Min-Soo Park was chosen to make first contact, his expertise in human culture making him the ideal candidate. As his ship prepared to breach the quarantine zone, Min-Soo reviewed his mission briefing. He would have to convince humans to help the very civilization that had judged them too dangerous to join. He would have to appeal to both their protective instincts and their desire for adventure. The fear of humans that led us to quarantine them, he thought, might be the very thing that saves us all. His ship's engines hummed as they approached Earth's solar system, the quarantine beacons deactivating for the first time in 3 years. The fate of the Federation now rested on the response of a species they had feared and isolated. Min-Soo could only hope that humanity's violent nature would prove to be their salvation rather than their doom. As Earth grew larger in his view screen, he prepared to make history, the first Federation citizen to officially contact the dangerous, but perhaps necessary, human race. The automated beacons that had kept humanity isolated now stood silent, marking not a boundary of quarantine, but a gateway of hope. The Federation's future would depend on whether their fear of humanity's violent nature had been wisdom or a terrible mistake. The massive United Defense Force fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the edges of Federation space. Admiral Yoon Hee Choi stood on the bridge of the UDF flagship Defiance, watching as hundreds of human warships took up defensive positions. The Federation aliens observed with a mixture of fear and hope as humanity brought its full military might to bear. All ships report ready, Admiral, her executive officer announced. The fleet carried over 50,000 Marines, led by the decorated Colonel Jin-Woo Park. Their primitive projectile weapons and explosive ordnance had been modified based on initial scans of the Void Eaters. The first engagement came sooner than expected. A Void Eater swarm attacked a Federation refugee convoy near the Centauri outpost. Colonel Park's Marines deployed immediately, their dropships screaming through space toward the threat. "Remember your training," Park's voice crackled over the comm as his troops prepared for combat. "These things may be alien, but they're still predators, and we know how to hunt predators." The Federation observers watched in amazement as human Marines engaged the Void Eaters. Instead of running or hiding, the humans attacked aggressively. Their modified weapons fired rounds containing electromagnetic pulses and plasma cores, disrupting the parasites' dimensional shifting abilities. "Push forward. Don't let them regroup," Park ordered as his troops advanced through the colony's corridors. The humans moved with a coordination and aggression that stunned the peaceful Federation species. Where their advanced technology had failed, human combat instincts and tactical thinking succeeded. Admiral Choi coordinated the space battle with equal effectiveness. Human ships performed maneuvers the Federation had never considered, using aggressive tactics that seemed reckless but proved devastatingly effective. The fleet's weapons had been modified to create overlapping fields of fire, trapping the Void Eaters in killing zones. "They're adapting to our tactics," Park reported during the battle's third hour. "Just like Earth predators would." He ordered his troops to switch to secondary strategies, displaying the tactical flexibility that made humans such successful hunters. The Federation's citizens watched in awe as human Marines worked together seamlessly, protecting civilians while engaging the enemy. Their violent nature, once feared, now served as a shield for the peaceful Federation species. Within 6 hours, the Void Eater swarm had been completely destroyed. The humans suffered casualties but achieved what the Federation had thought impossible, a decisive victory against the parasites. "This is just the beginning," Admiral Choi announced to the Federation Council. "We'll need to adapt our tactics as they learn, but we understand how to fight an evolving enemy. It's what humans do best." The Federation's fear of human violence transformed into appreciation for human protection. They watched as more UDF fleets arrived, bringing with them the predatory instincts and combat expertise that their peaceful civilization had evolved past. Colonel Park's after-action report became required reading for Federation leaders. "The Void Eaters are dangerous, but they've never faced an enemy that evolved specifically to hunt other predators. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our understanding of predator-prey relationships and our ability to shift between roles as needed." As human forces spread throughout Federation space, setting up defensive perimeters and hunting down Void Eater swarms, the aliens began to understand why Earth's quarantine had been both their greatest mistake and their ultimate salvation. The very nature that had made humans too dangerous to join galactic society now made them the perfect defenders of it. The primitive human tactics continued to prove effective as more battles were won. Admiral Choi's fleet became a symbol of hope rather than fear, and Colonel Park's Marines were welcomed as heroes on every Federation world they protected. Humanity had answered the call for help with characteristic determination, bringing their predatory nature to bear against an enemy that threatened not just their own species, but all sentient life in the galaxy. Major Hai-Jin Kim stood before a holographic display of the latest Void Eater attack patterns, her keen eyes analyzing every detail. 3 months of fighting had taught humanity much about their enemy, and she was determined to turn that knowledge into victory. "The parasites aren't just feeding," she explained to Federation scientist Du Yan Baek. "They're learning, adapting, evolving. Just like any predator species." She pointed to the shifting patterns in the display. "But that makes them predictable to those who understand predator behavior." Du Yan watched in fascination as Hai-Jin's strike teams implemented her new combat doctrines. The human soldiers moved like coordinated hunting packs, using the Void Eater's own predatory nature against them. They set traps, created false targets, and exploited the parasites' feeding patterns. "Your species understands this on an instinctive level," Du Yan noted, recording the effectiveness of each new tactic. "The way you think about combat, about hunting, it's unprecedented in Federation history." Hai-Jin's most innovative strategy involved using the parasites' dimensional shifting abilities against them. Her teams deployed specialized energy fields that forced the Void Eaters to remain solid, making them vulnerable to concentrated fire. "In nature, every predator has weaknesses," she explained during a tactical briefing. "The key is finding them and exploiting them mercilessly." The Federation observers flinched at her choice of words, but couldn't argue with the results. Strike Team Alpha, led by Captain Song Min, demonstrated the new tactics in the defense of Haven Colony. They lured a Void Eater swarm into a carefully prepared killing zone, using decoy energy signatures as bait. When the parasites took the bait, they found themselves trapped between overlapping fields of fire. The record showed humans surviving ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. Each time, They emerged stronger, smarter, more adaptable. Other species would have gone extinct facing just one of these challenges. Humans had faced them all and conquered them. Ra moved to a different section of the archives, studying the reports from the first alien contact with Earth. The observers had classified Earth as a death world, believing this would keep humanity contained. They had thought the harsh conditions of their homeworld would limit human development. We made everything worse, Ra realized. Every restriction, every limitation we placed on them, it just made them more determined to overcome it. The displays showed how humans had turned their evolutionary advantages into weapons. Their high-gravity muscles meant they could fight longer and harder than other species. Their endurance let them outlast any opponent. Their ability to ignore pain and keep fighting made them terrifying in combat. But worst of all was their intelligence. Humans hadn't just survived their death world. They had mastered it. They had taken the very things that should have killed them and turned them into tools. They had learned to harness fire, to shape metal, to build machines that could take them to the stars. Elder, his assistant's voice shook. You need to see the military analysis. The new displays showed human combat capabilities. They could fight in environments that would kill most species instantly. They could survive in space longer than any known race. They could operate in high gravity, low gravity, or no gravity with equal skill. Russ studied the reports with growing dread. The aliens had thought they were being clever, restricting human military development. But humans had turned these restrictions into advantages. Unable to build large warships, they made smaller, deadlier ones. Limited in weapon technology, they developed better tactics. They weren't just surviving, Ray said softly. They were preparing. Every limitation we placed on them, they found a way around it. Every weakness we thought they had, they turned into strength. The final display showed human population centers, not just in their allowed territories, but hidden throughout the galaxy. While other species had focused on controlling human military expansion, humans had been quietly establishing colonies everywhere. They hadn't been contained. They had chosen to appear contained. Ra's crystalline form dimmed as he understood the full truth. Humanity hadn't evolved on a death world. They had evolved into a species capable of making any world their own. They weren't just survivors or warriors. They were adapters, innovators, conquerors who had chosen to play nice. Send this analysis to the Council, Ray ordered. They need to understand what we're truly facing. But as he prepared the report, Ray knew it was too late. The galaxy had spent centuries trying to contain a species that had evolved to overcome any containment. They had tried to restrict a species that turned restrictions into advantages. They had tried to control the ultimate survivors. Now the Deathworlders had stopped playing nice, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth's harsh evolution had created not just survivors, but conquerors. The true lesson wasn't that humans had evolved on a death world. It was that they had evolved to make any world their own. General Song stood in the massive holographic chamber deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, watching as thousands of alien ships gathered in formation. The Coalition fleet was impressive. 7 of the galaxy's most powerful species had united against humanity. Their ships filled the display, a swarm of deadly vessels that would have terrified any other race. Song smiled. Everything was going according to plan. In her own command center, carved into the heart of the Himalayan mountains, Admiral Jin studied similar displays. The mountain facility had existed for centuries, hidden from alien detection by technology that humanity had developed but never revealed. The vast chamber hummed with activity as officers monitored the Coalition's movements. They've committed 90% of their combined fleets, Jin's tactical officer reported. Over 10,000 ships in total. Jin nodded slowly. The aliens thought they were being clever, gathering such overwhelming force. They believed that superior numbers would guarantee victory. They still didn't understand what they were facing. Deep beneath every major mountain range on Earth, similar command centers monitored the situation. Humanity had spent centuries building these facilities, each one capable of coordinating a war effort even if all others were destroyed. It was the kind of redundancy that came from evolving on a planet where disaster could strike at any moment. General Song is reporting from Pacific Command, an officer announced. The coalition is moving their support fleets into position. Jin studied the tactical display. The alien ships were arranging themselves in traditional battle formations, the same formations they had used for thousands of years. They had no reason to change them because no species had ever successfully challenged their military doctrine. Until now. Status of Operation Shadowfall, Jin asked quietly. Her staff began reporting in sequence. Human stealth ships had infiltrated every major alien fleet. Hidden weapon platforms were in position around key strategic points. The trap that humanity had spent centuries preparing was ready to be sprung. In his own command post beneath the Andes, General Song watched the coalition's final preparations. The alien species had thrown everything they had into this effort. Their best ships, their most advanced weapons, their most experienced commanders. They thought they were preparing the greatest military force ever assembled. They didn't realize they were concentrating their forces exactly as humanity had planned. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're picking up coalition communications. They're discussing the attack plan." Song listened as the alien commanders coordinated their strategy. They planned to overwhelm human defenses with sheer numbers, believing that no force could stand against such overwhelming odds. Their confidence was almost painful to hear. In the Himalayan Command Center, Admiral Jin received the final confirmation signals. Every human fleet was in position. Every weapon platform was ready. 3 centuries of preparation were about to pay off. "They still think we're confined to our known territories," Jin mused aloud. "They have no idea how far we've spread, how much we've prepared." The displays showed the coalition fleet beginning its final approach. 7 alien species, each powerful in their own right, united against the Death World threat. They had brought enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. But humanity had been ready for this moment before these alien commanders were even born. Every move they made had been anticipated. Every strategy they planned had been countered in advance. The trap was perfect because humanity had spent centuries refining it. "All commands, execute final protocol," Jin ordered, her voice carrying to every human facility and ship across the galaxy. "The time for hiding is over." Across human space, hidden facilities activated. Weapon platforms that had masqueraded as communications satellites revealed their true nature. Stealth ships that had infiltrated alien formations prepared to strike. The full extent of human military power began to show itself. The coalition ships continued their advance, unaware that they were surrounded on all sides by forces they couldn't detect. They still believed they were the hunters. They didn't realize they had become the prey. "Send the final warning," Jin commanded. "Let them know what they're really facing." Throughout the coalition fleet, commanders received the same message. "You believe you know humanity's strength. You believe you know our capabilities. You are wrong. Surrender now, or learn why Earth is called a death world." In their arrogance, the alien commanders ignored the warning. They had seen human military power. They had measured human technology. They had calculated the odds. They believed they understood what they were facing. But as General Song watched from his command post, as Admiral Jin monitored from her mountain fortress, as human forces prepared to reveal themselves, they knew the truth. The coalition wasn't facing the human military they thought they knew. They were facing the real human military, the one that had been hidden, preparing and waiting for this moment. The gathering storm wasn't the coalition fleet. The real storm was humanity, finally unleashed after centuries of restraint. And when it broke, the galaxy would never be the same. The time for playing nice was over. The time for showing the galaxy why Earth was called a death world had begun. Commander Juan stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as human forces revealed themselves across the Orion Arm. Ships emerged from stealth, appearing like ghosts in the midst of enemy formations. The coalition fleets, caught completely by surprise, tried desperately to respond. They never had a chance. Human warships moved in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics, inertial dampeners that humanity had perfected centuries ago, but kept hidden allowed them to make turns that would have torn other ships apart. Their weapons cut through enemy shields as if they didn't exist, using technology that the aliens had thought impossible. Target their command ships, Juan ordered calmly. Show them what we can really do. The battle unfolded across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. Human forces struck everywhere at once, using tactics that the alien species had never seen before. Ships would appear from nowhere, strike with devastating precision, and vanish again before the enemy could respond. On the surface of the Viridian homeworld, human ground forces demonstrated why Earth's high gravity had created the galaxy's ultimate warriors. Soldiers in powered armor ran at incredible speeds, their enhanced muscles and bones allowing them to fight in gravity that would have crushed other species. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Viridian Central Defense Fleet is breaking formation. They're trying to retreat." Juan watched as the mighty alien fleet, pride of their species, turned to flee, but there was nowhere to run. Human ships were everywhere, using superior technology and tactics to herd the enemy exactly where they wanted them. The Week of Fire, as it came to be known, showed the galaxy what humanity had been hiding. Soldiers fought in toxic atmospheres without protection, their bodies adapted to handle conditions that would kill other species instantly. Wounds that should have been fatal were shrugged off, human regenerative abilities proving far superior to anything the aliens had imagined. In orbit around the Viridian capital, Juan's forces demonstrated the full extent of human military power. Ships that had posed as civilian vessels suddenly transformed into devastating warships. Hidden weapon platforms activated, cutting off all escape routes. The trap that had taken centuries to prepare was finally sprung. Enemy forces are surrendering across all sectors, the communications officer announced. They're begging for mercy. Juan nodded slowly. The aliens had thought they understood human capabilities. They had believed their superior numbers would guarantee victory. Instead, they had walked into a carefully prepared ambush that had been centuries in the making. Human forces moved with devastating efficiency. Every target had been selected in advance. Every strategy had been refined over generations of preparation. The coalition's mighty fleets, which had seemed so impressive during their gathering, crumbled before real human military power. On the ground, human soldiers demonstrated why they were the galaxy's apex predators. They could fight longer, hit harder, and endure more punishment than any other species. Their adaptability, born from evolving on Earth, made them nearly unstoppable in combat. "We're detecting mass surrenders in sectors 7 through 12, his tactical officer reported. The coalition forces are completely demoralized. The aliens had never seen anything like this. Human ships used technology that they had thought impossible. Human soldiers performed feats that seemed to defy physics. Everything they thought they knew about humanity's capabilities had been wrong. In his command center, Juan watched as centuries of hidden advancement were unveiled in days of devastating combat. The aliens had thought they were facing a barely civilized species that had been successfully contained. Instead, they faced an enemy that had been preparing for this moment since first contact. "All forces, proceed to Phase 3, Juan ordered. "Show them what happens when Deathworlders stop playing nice." Across the battlefield, human forces continued their relentless advance. Ships moved with impossible grace, soldiers fought with incredible power, and weapons demonstrated technology that had been hidden for centuries. The coalition's mighty fleets, which had seemed so threatening during their gathering, now looked like children's toys before the real might of humanity. The Week of Fire wasn't just a military victory. It was a demonstration of why Earth had created such a formidable species. Every advantage humans had evolved on their death world was turned into a weapon. Every harsh lesson learned during their evolution became a tactical advantage. As Juan watched the final battles unfold, He thought about how long humanity had waited for this moment. They had played weak, played civilized, played by alien rules, all while preparing, building, and waiting for the day when they would show the galaxy their true power. The aliens had thought they were containing a dangerous species. They had never understood that they were merely giving humanity time to prepare, time to build, time to perfect their weapons and tactics, time to set the perfect trap. Now, as the week of fire came to an end, as alien fleets surrendered and worlds begged for mercy, the galaxy finally understood. They hadn't been dealing with just another species. They had been trying to contain the ultimate survivors, the apex predators, the species that had turned their death world origins into their greatest strength. The giants were walking, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Sun walked through the halls of the reformed Galactic Council, her footsteps echoing in the reverent silence. 5 years had passed since the week of fire, and everything had changed. The once grand chamber, with its towering ceilings and ornate decorations, had been rebuilt simpler, more practical, a reflection of humanity's influence. The alien representatives watched her approach with a mixture of respect and carefully hidden fear. Gone were the days of patronizing smiles and dismissive gestures. Now they understood what it meant to be born on a death world. The human delegation recognizes the 5th anniversary of the new Concordat. Sun began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We are pleased to report that trade has increased by 300% across all sectors. Military cooperation continues to exceed expectations. The aliens listened intently. They had learned that when humans spoke, it was wise to pay attention. The species that had hidden their true power for centuries had proven they could be generous allies or terrifying enemies. In her office on Earth, Admiral Neri stood at her window, watching the stars. The night sky looked different now. Where once humans had seen barriers and restrictions, they now saw opportunities. The galaxy had opened up in ways their ancestors could only have dreamed of. The integration programs are proceeding well. Sun continued in the council chamber. 17 species have now adopted human training methods for their military forces. 32 have requested assistance in developing their planetary defenses. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very species that had once tried to contain humanity now sought their protection and guidance. They had learned that courtesy wasn't weakness, and that those who evolved in harsh conditions did so for a reason. Across human space, the changes were evident. Hidden shipyards and weapon platforms now operated openly, their advanced technology no longer a secret. Human colonies spread across the stars, no longer confined by artificial boundaries. But most importantly, humans no longer had to pretend to be less than they were. The Death Worlder integration program has shown particular success, Sun reported. 4 other species from high-gravity worlds have joined the alliance. Their unique evolutionary advantages, combined with human training and technology, have created formidable defensive capabilities. The aliens had learned that Earth wasn't unique in creating powerful species. What was unique was how humans had turned their harsh evolution into an advantage, how they had learned to harness their natural abilities and combine them with advanced technology. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Neri's flagship maintained its vigilant watch. The massive vessel no longer needed to hide its true capabilities. Its advanced weapons and defensive systems were a visible reminder of human power and human restraint. We continue to uphold the principles of peaceful coexistence, Sun assured the Council. Humanity has no desire for conquest. We seek only to ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. The legend of the Deathworlders who stopped playing nice had become a cautionary tale throughout the galaxy. Young aliens learned about the Week of Fire in their history classes, about how underestimating humanity had led to the greatest military defeat in galactic history. But they also learned about what came after, how humans had shown mercy to their defeated enemies, how they had shared their advanced technology with allied species, how they had helped rebuild worlds damaged in the conflict. In her office, Neri smiled as she watched a fleet of alien ships pass by Earth. Once, such a sight would have been concerning. Now it was routine. Allies coming to train, to trade, to learn from the species they had once tried to contain. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The harsh conditions of Earth hadn't created monsters. They had forged a species capable of incredible adaptation, innovation, and, when necessary, devastating military power. Sun concluded her address to the Council with words that had become famous across known space. Remember that courtesy is not weakness, and peace is not surrender. Remember that those who evolve in harsh conditions do so for a reason. And most importantly, remember that the day the Deathworlders stopped playing nice was not the end of galactic civilization. It was the beginning of a new and better order. As the council session ended, as ships moved peacefully through space, as humans and aliens worked together across thousands of worlds, the truth was clear to all. The galaxy had finally learned why Earth was classified as a death world in the first place. It wasn't just about the planet's conditions. It was about the remarkable species those conditions had created. And that species had finally shown its true face to the stars.